I am so excited to introduce this bonus to you. Hi, everyone. I'm Pam Barnhill. Welcome to episode 71 of the 10 Minutes to a Better Homeschool podcast. I help homeschoolers beat burnout, create doable systems, and bring more joy to their homeschool day. Okay, so this episode is all about the bonus for Put Your Homeschool Year on Autopilot this summer. Every summer, we have a bonus for Autopilot purchasers. The fabulous thing about it is once you purchase Autopilot, you get the bonus every summer thereafter. So we have some people who have gotten some fabulous free bonuses from having purchased Autopilot, but it's a one-time purchase. So the bonus period this year ends June 30th, and that's because we have a fabulous workshop, Managing Multiple Kids. So I'm having Heather Tully on today to talk about this workshop. She was actually on episode 64 of the 10 Minutes to a Better Homeschool podcast, where we talked about using a loop schedule to manage multiple kids. And we realized that Heather had so much to offer that we were going to bring her back for a 2-part workshop this summer, all about how to get this done. So Put Your Homeschool Year on Autopilot will help you plan out your school year. But Heather's workshop is going to help you manage to do the plan with multiple children. And we think it's going to be fabulous. So we're going to be talking about that in this episode of the podcast. We have a fun new kind of framework we're going to share with you. And yeah, just listen in and tell us what you think. Heather Tully is a mom of 10 who's been homeschooling for over 19 years. As a documentary photographer, she seeks to capture the wonder in everyday life. You can find her online at heathertullyphotography.com, where she shares her work and photos of her family from their Georgia home. And Heather is also the co-author of the book, Gather, Exploring the Wonder, Wisdom, and Worship of Learning at Home. I hear you had a pretty great co-author for that book, Heather.
I did.
Welcome to the podcast. Okay, in case you haven't heard, Heather and I wrote that book together, and it was so much fun to get to work with you and your beautiful photography.
Oh, thanks. And meet all those families, right? It was awesome.
Well, you got to meet all the families. I just got to meet your family. But so much fun. Okay, so today we are here talking about homeschooling multiple kids, which if you're having deja vu as a podcast listener, we actually had Heather on earlier in the spring to talk about homeschooling multiple kids. And from that, we kind of got this idea that we could help moms with this a little bit more and decided we were going to do a special class this summer, right?
Yeah, I'm so excited for July.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun, Okay, so let's talk about this idea, because I think this is a place where a lot of moms kind of get hung up. Now, some moms don't, because they're just thrown into their very first homeschooling experience with homeschooling multiple kids. I don't think that makes it any less overwhelming, though. But can you remember back all those years ago when you started homeschooling more than one?
Yeah, so the first year, when I had an official homeschooler, right? We're all homeschoolers, so we start before they're 6. But that first year, I had a 6-year-old and I had 3 toddlers, and I was expecting. So it was busy. So the third year of homeschooling, I started with 2 official students all the way. You fast forward, and this next year, I'll have 7 students that I'm homeschooling at one time.
That just wears me out, like, because I've never had more than 3. And this is okay, so this is my last year with 3 right now, because I'm graduating my first, or actually by the time this comes out, she will be graduated. So, it's funny though, because for me, my first 2 were 22 months apart. So it never felt like, I know that like there was a point in time where Olivia was doing things like reading and math and John wasn't. But he was just always kind of there along for the ride. So it always feels like I've been homeschooling more than one kid. I think my big thing, though, was bringing in number 3 when Thomas came in and kind of reached that age where he needed to be doing phonics and he needed to be doing math. And my other 2 were still such a young age that they were still needing a lot of help from me. And then there was the guilt because, Thomas didn't get the same experience. Did
Right.
you ever
Yeah.
struggle with that?
Is really a big struggle with multiple kids. I think for me, my breaking point was when we had high schoolers and knowing how to give them enough time while I still had littles. I mean, at that point, I still had kinder. I still had, those early years, toddlers. So it's tricky. Mom guilt is a big thing for any homeschoolers. But I think the bigger your family, the more students, it can be easy to feel like you're not doing enough. You didn't cover everything. So we'll talk about that. That's one of the things we want to talk about in our class.
Right. And yeah, I hadn't even thought about that because mine did kind of move together. By the time I got ready for high schoolers, my youngest was old enough that he wasn't taking as much as my time, though he still takes more of my time than anybody else does. I will say. So do you think that's probably the biggest struggle do you think it's a bigger struggle when they're little or a bigger struggle as you get older kids?
That's hard. People ask me that all the time. Littles, I think, are more physically demanding, but those big kids take a lot of time. They still need you to check in on them. They're doing more independently through the day, but they still need those points with mom. So I think every season is a struggle. And I think it's learning to embrace that and realize it's not always going to be perfect. I don't think it ever is perfect. It's perfect because it isn't perfect, and learning to just embrace those different seasons. It's constantly shifting as our children get older and you add in more students and some graduate. It would be so easy if it was always the same, wouldn't it?
Well, and that's true, right? Because, stuff that stays the same, you get used to doing and you can just rinse and repeat and do over and over again. And so, yeah, it's kind of like when you get a set of meals or something that you like to cook. But then the season shifts and you want to make like food for the hot or food for the cold so it's all like it's constantly changing like everything else. Okay, so we have, though, come up with a method that we think is going to help moms, dads, any homeschoolers think through this and maybe shift some of their mindset a little bit. So we have a series of steps that we think would be good to follow. And what are we calling it?
I'm calling it flock, which is because you mentioned when we were talking about this, like, a mother duck with her little ducklings. And I was chuckling because I was picturing me trying to herd a bunch of cats.
Cats do not come in a flock. Okay, we're going to
scatter. So I was laughing like, no, think ducks. Think, they're all following the line.
Yeah. Oh, it's have you seen the meme though with like the ducks in the cop car? And it's like my ducks are like definitely not in a row or something like that. I don't even know where my ducks are. Oh, I love it. Okay, so let's talk about what flock stands for. So just very briefly, you want to give us a rundown?
So F is fix your expectations, and I love that one. L is look for ways to simplify. O is organize your time and your energy. C is create helpful habits. And then K is keep records.
Oh, keep records. That just sounds so daunting. Come on.
So this is really realistic because we're moms with multiples, and we need to take kind of those hopes and those aspirations and make it practical. And so it's very realistic and very simple.
Right. And there's a very important reason why we keep those records too. And it might not be the reason what you think it is. And so you're going to have to just come to the workshop and check it out. So let's talk about how a little bit of the logistics about the workshop. We're doing this in 2 parts, right?
Correct. Yeah. 2 different sessions. Remind me of the dates, Pam. I don't
July 7th is going to be the first one. And then July 20th is going to be the second one. And I think we broke it up into so many sessions because we really wanted to be able to give time for lots of Q&A.
It's always nice to be able to bounce ideas off of other mamas. So I want to have time to, okay, we share this with you. Now let's talk about it.
Right. And then implementation as well. So we're going to have a workbook for you, the 2 parts to the workshop, lots of Q&A, and how you get this. It is actually a free bonus this year with the purchase of Autopilot. Put Your Homeschool Year on Autopilot, which is our planning course. Now, if you are listening to this and you bought Autopilot last year or the year before or 5 years ago, you get this bonus. Every bonus we release for Autopilot, if you purchased it in the past, you always get the bonus. If you haven't purchased Autopilot, you're definitely going to want to do that before June 30th, because that is the end of our bonus period this year. So after June 30th, the bonus period will be over, and we'll be getting ready and gearing up, getting everybody into that first workshop on July 7th. And yes, there will be recordings. We will record the workshop, and you'll have the opportunity to download and keep those recordings as well. So Heather, you have used the Autopilot method of planning in the form of Plan Your Year to do your planning in the past, yes?
Yeah, I have. So I'll be talking about that and sharing kind of how I adapted it for multiple kids, how to take, from high schooler down. Next year I'll have a first grader. But before then I had high schooler to kinder. So.
Okay. Yeah. So this is going to dovetail very nicely with everything that we talk about in Autopilot. And as Heather and I were chatting about this course and the outline of the workshop and everything, we talked about the fact that Autopilot is the perfect way to create the plan for the year. In Flock, we're going to be talking a little bit about the planning, but we're really going to move into the execution and how you take the plan that you've created in your head. And this is why we're starting with expectations. And you actually make it work when you are homeschooling, 2, 3, 4, 7 children all at one time.
Yeah. I really want to give the mamas a hope, inspire them. You can do this. And you can. You do it. I do it. There's so many moms out there who are homeschooling multiple children. And so we want to encourage you and how to take that grand plan you spent a lot of time making, which is an important first step. But then what does the day-to-day look like?
I love it. I love it so much. Okay, this is going to be great. And I just realized that, we have Autopilot and now we have Flock, which is about birds. So we're still talking about flying in your homeschool. That's ready to fly. I love it. Okay. So if you want to get Autopilot, Put Your Homeschool Year on Autopilot with the Flock bonus for this year, the Teaching Multiple Kids bonus, then come on over to pambarnhill.com/autopilot and you can get right in.
Sounds great.
And there you have it. Now, if you want to join us for the free bonus Managing Multiple Kids workshop and find out more about that Flock framework, you can come on over to pambarnhill.com/autopilot. Pick up the Put Your Homeschool Year on Autopilot planning course. You will not be sorry that you did. And then you'll get to join us for the workshop as long as you purchase by June 30th. And we'll also have links and resources to the other podcasts that we did this year on managing multiple kids. So you can go have a listen to those. And happy planning, guys. I think that planning season is one of the best seasons of the year. Everything is bright, shiny, and new. And I just love to get my homeschool plans together. So we'll be back again in a couple of weeks with another of our Planning Mom series. Until then, keep on homeschooling.